Today we're going to be looking at the different blender containers. The container design plays a huge role in blending foods. Factors to consider are container design, blade design, the power of the blender that will turn the blade, and ease of cleaning. We'll be looking at the Vitamix, the Waring, and two different Blendtec containers and blenders to see the differences. First one is the Vitamix. Vitamix container has two 2 3/4 inch crossed blades with tips that travel 5.97 inches per revolution. The next one is a Waring container, and that one has two 3-inch cross blades with tips that travel 6.51 inches. The small Blendtec container has one 3 1/4 inch blade with large 1/2 inch upright tips that travel 7.05 inches in one revolution. And the large Blendtec container has one 4-inch blade with large 1/2 inch upright tips that travel 8.68 inches. The large tips, as you can see there on the side, on the large Blendtec container, we've clocked at 366 miles per hour. And those travel about 33% farther than the small tips on the other blenders. That means at the same RPM, the smaller blades would only be moving at 275 miles an hour. And having a food particle hit at 366 miles per hour has much more braking power than 270 miles per hour. The upright tips, the 1/2 inch tips, come in contact with significantly more food than the tiny tips of the other containers. Small cheap blenders in the $100 range have small containers with small blades, and they have looked the same for many years. The second generation blenders in the 2 to 3 horsepower range are much more effective at breaking up the food. They are able to create a whirlpool vortex effect in the middle of the container, drawing the food into the small 2 to 3 inch blade. Notice our blender demonstrations where there is a whirlpool. The smoothie hardly rises above the sides of the container. The Blendtec 96-ounce container with a 4-inch blade fills the container with radical movement. It creates an earthquake instead of a tornado. The whirlpool/tornado sucks the food down into the blade by creating the whirlpool. The earthquake forces the food up the sides of the container, and it gets churned up even more by the 5-sided irregular shaped sides of the 96-ounce container. Then hits the blade again at a higher speed than the whirlpool. So the speed of the food coupled with the speed of the blade translates into a 3rd generation blend. Tornado blenders make great smoothies. If smooth smoothies is your goal. However, the goal of a symbiotic raw foodist is optimum body health, which is only attainable by ingesting optimal fuel and nutrients. The Earthquake blender micronizes the food at a level unattainable by any other blender on the market today. A symbiotic raw foodist who wants optimal breakdown of the food will not settle for a smooth smoothie. They will insist on the best. They will use a blender container combination that will break up the food at the micron level or at the cellular level. Why settle for second best when for a few dollars more you can have the best? In creating a new container, the Blendtec designers went back to the drawing board and tweaked all the design parameters, which at the time was the state-of-the-art container. They came up with something that is in a completely different class than what was on the market. The Blendtec container is now the state-of-the-art container, and it will hold that position for years. After completing their project, they said, "Our newly designed 96-ounce jar easily doubles or triples your recipe. The 5-sided design creates a vortex within the jar that pulls the product through the blade faster, reducing cavitation and eliminating the need for a tamper." Their mission was accomplished, and we symbiotic raw foodists now have a blender that was much more effective than what we were using and promoting. I'm going to show this blender now, that container. The 96-ounce Blendtec container has two 4 1/4 inch sides, two 3 1/2 inch sides, and one 1 1/2 inch side. The fifth side is a small design change from a 4-sided container, but the results are anything but small. The flow of the blending fluid is disturbed radically, which allows the 4-inch blade to break up the food at the micron level. Because of the radical action, the blending time is cut down, so the smoothie is not oxygenated as much, which kills the nutrients. We have checked the ORP, which is the oxygen reduction potential, and it is significantly less with this container. Since there is no cavitation, there is no need for a tamper to break up the air pockets that form in the second generation blenders. Cavitation is virtually eliminated, which is significant time savings in the blending process. The 96-ounce container was designed for the higher amperage commercial Blendtec blenders. It fits on a smaller residential Blendtec blender, but it would decrease the life of the blender because they just don't have the power to drive it for that long at the RPMs necessary to completely break up the food to the micron level. Finally, the ease of cleaning. The 96-ounce container, even the smaller Blendtec 64-ounce container, is much easier to clean than the other containers that we looked at. The small, sharp blades in the other containers are very difficult to clean around because there's very little room at the bottom of the container because it narrows down quite a bit. However, in the Blendtec containers, especially the large one, there's a lot of room to get under the blade. I made an almond date butter 5-signal smoothie the other day, which is very thick, but I was able to reach inside and get the glob out very easily. There again, the time savings and cleanup is very important. There you have it. Now it's your choice. Have a smooth day or a smoothie day.